right, it is 5:02, and I am calling the Board of Finance to order. The mayor is on a well-deserved vacation, so you're stuck with me running the show today. The first item on the agenda is the agenda. Do we have a motion?
Move to adopt the agenda.
Great, thank you, Councillor Chowder, seconded by Councillor Carpenter. Any comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. The second item is public forum. Are there any members of the public in person that would like to speak at public forum? Seeing none, we will turn online, where we have Sharon Busher, and I have allowed you to talk, Sharon.
Thank you very much, Catherine. So good evening. First of all, I wanted to say that the agenda, which has the request for monies, allocation of monies to our library, our original library building, is so important. I'm so glad we're investing in one historic structure. I hope we can do more, because we have others that I would like to see preserved. But the reason I'm calling in is because of item 4.2 on your deliberative. It's the, from DPW Technical Services, proposing to eliminate a planner and change that into a transportation engineer. And the questions that came to mind for me were, so a department that only has one planner, if something happens to that individual, and I hope there's certainly nothing happens to him, I like him a lot, we are left without a planner in DPW. That's number one. Number two is that if this is a transportation planning position that is being eliminated, and it strikes me as odd, since I've just spent a fair amount of time following a very large policy of TDM policy that also has a component of neighborhood TDM, and this is about to be adopted by the City Council, I believe, and move forward. Some aspects prioritized and then move forward. And what's odd to me is that this whole proposal has been brought forward by our planning director. And so that says to me that yes, this needs to be united. It has to be shared responsibility. That makes sense because TDM is a component in our ordinances. But I'm worried that we have a planning department that is short-staffed and has a lot on its plate. And if you eliminate a TDM planner in DPW, I see a shift potentially to more responsibility falling on the planning staff and in another department. And I'm concerned about that. The timing seems odd. I understand the position has been vacant. That I didn't explore why it was vacant. If it wasn't a priority to fill, that might speak to it. I really don't know. But with all of the work that we're doing, planning is instrumental in getting it right. You create policies, but then planning and bringing them forward is really instrumental. So it does make me wonder why. I understand the value of another transportation engineer, but I read this and thought, does this make sense? Is someone looking at the total number of people responsible for planning in the city and where that burden is going to now be on? What department is going to bear that burden? And I'm concerned about that. So I just wanted to share this before you started talking about this item, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharon. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? We'll go ahead and close public forum and move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion on the consent agenda? Councilor Carpenter, is there a second? Thank you, Councilor Newbeezer. Any comments or questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously.
But I'm excited about roller skating.
Yes, we should all be excited about roller skating. Thank you, Parks Department. Let's move on to the first item on the deliberative. And we have Director Brian Pine here to talk to us about that. I will get us going. We have a very brief PowerPoint that we will get there.
For the record, it's Brian Pine, the Director of the Community and Economic Development Office. And with me is
David White, I'm President of White Real Estate Advisors and consultant to the city on its two TIF districts.
Great, thanks for being with us, David. I thought that rather than jump into the refinancing, which is your big question tonight, give you a quick update on the project, and that's why also with us tonight is Dave Farrington, also known as DCF2. That is also DCF. So we're going to run through some updates on the project. Dave took this for us, I think, over the weekend, because we threw it into the slide deck quickly, and I believe we are looking west, Dave, is that right?
Yeah, that's from the corner, the new St. Paul and Cherry.
Yep. We'll move to the next slide. We are in front of you tonight for the refinancing question, which we'll get to actually after we just do a quick project overview of where we are in this project. It's progressing very well. Dave likes to say we're, 2 days ahead of the schedule, Dave? Sometimes a couple hours. So they've changed their name though, back to the old school Burlington Square, which is really more of a trade name, or our city attorney likes to call it a fictitious name, a fictitious business name, because that's what I guess technically the legal definition is, but it still is what they're going to use, Burlington Square. So you'll see the south building, of course, is it's almost finished. We'll be opening in July. The north building, the steel is going up, the foundation is in, and there will be a parking garage in the center, which I believe gets constructed during the construction of the north building, Dave?
Yeah, we're gonna do the structural steel on the north building up to the stair tower at the corners by St. Paul and Cherry again, and drop back in the whole, build the garage out at the St. Paul Street, and then finish that last cube of that gold color that's on the St. Paul Street, the east side of the building.
And what we're not showing here, but at least is in the bullets to the side, the notes, is phase 2 is referred to, that's the LL Bean and the building that wraps around and goes out to Church Street, and phase 3 is what we now think of as Macy's VHS Downtown, which is under separate ownership, so those are not our focus today. Next slide. This is what we see right now. It kind of looks a lot like that. So there'll be a hotel that is opening on the ground, second floor really. The ground floor is the commercial space that is retail. It's listed as it would be, right now I think we can say safely, a restaurant and other businesses. Yeah. So it's some housing, but I think all told it's 53 or 53 housing units, I think.
53 apartments, 161 bedrooms.
And so you'll see that on the next slide, what this brings to a total of the south building is about 90% complete, which is good news for a lot of reasons. It doesn't hurt to have our tax bills go out on April 1st. If it was 90% for the assessor, that's not a bad thing to have. You look at the bottom bullet, an $80 million grant list value is what's estimated for the project when it's fully complete. We'll go to the next slide on the north building. This is looking from the it's looking sort of from that yellow brick building across from BHS Macy's.
Right.
You're looking southeasterly right now. So the Pine Street, it'll cut down under the building is just as you enter that bottom right corner, that's Pine Street right there. This project is, this part of the project is, as you see, 320 housing units. All of the inclusionary housing gets built, included in the north building. And we are going to, another hotel. There's plenty of demand, otherwise the financing and the market demand has to be proven in order for that to go forward, but they believe very strongly that the market will support that. We've got a total of 420 parking spaces by the end of the project. The public improvements are being constructed as we go, and Laura Wheelock can certainly speak to this if needed, but those improvements are progressing just as planned. Bank Street will be largely complete enough to reopen very soon. Next slide. This is just a pretty amazing view, Dave. This is from the top floor of your.
Yeah, that's from the 11th floor, west corner, northwest corner of the south building. They had to do a little panoramic thing to get it all in this time. I think the last picture was taken. It was pouring rain Saturday, so.
Yeah. I think it's just important to note that the north building is, there's been some challenges. We have, I don't know if, I think people are aware of some financial issues happening at the national level that are causing a lot of chaos. And one of those outcomes is that it's hard to get financing commitments. And so even though the project progresses, it's largely being, it's being self-financed right now, which of course is not where we, that won't get them to completion, but it gets them further along. And you might think of it as like an equity investment. Really, it's a significant equity investment, but there's a lot of equity going into the steel construction that you see right now. When all is said and done, this project should wrap up in spring of 2027 with another 140 million in grant money. So I should just know when we say that, it's just full disclosure, 100% of the municipal new tax revenue goes to pay back the TIF. 75% of the ed fund revenue, 75% goes to retire TIF debt. The other 25% goes to the ed fund. It's about 50, in the end, it's about 50 million of new taxable value that goes to the law of education. So when people criticize TIF for not returning any money to the ed fund, it's important to note that that just isn't always the case. So here's some key points that really relate to the financing, the refinancing you're doing tonight, which is our third time. Yes, we did one in 23. We refinanced in May of 24. Here we are now refinanced. We'll talk a little bit about why we're refinancing. And I think I'm going to give David a chance to speak to why we're refinancing.
Do you want me to do that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the refinancing is being done because we don't yet know what the total debt will be. The approved amount of debt, maximum approved amount of debt is $18,840,000, and that's what was initially borrowed under the interim financing. And it was done because we were up against a hard deadline that the legislature had imposed. If we had not borrowed by that certain date, now 2 years back, the city's ability to borrow at all was gone. And so we borrowed the maximum amount and have had it in a trust account, an interest-bearing trust account that has been earning, to date at least, actually earning more money than the interest that was being paid out was costing. So far it's been a wash for the city with regard to interest cost versus interest earned. That may not necessarily be the case going forward, but that was that's what's happened so far. We have held off on doing permanent financing for a number of reasons. One of those is that the fundamental part of the agreement, the amended development agreement, amended and restated development agreement called the ARDA 2.0, the second version of it, between the city and City Place Partners, basically says the city will borrow no more money in its permanent financing than that amount of money which can be supported by the incremental tax being paid by the property. And so until we know that, and that the north building is fully financed and ready to go, the city can't project, you know, in a worst case scenario, what would happen and what the tax revenues would be. So that's one reason. The second reason is the city had, and actually there are three total reasons. The second reason is the city actually has various grant applications either pending or anticipated that may reduce the amount of money that the city would need to borrow, because those grants would help finance some of the project, some of the public improvements that otherwise would be financed through this TIF bond. And so if those are received, that also would reduce the amount of the final TIF bond. And finally, as we all know, interest rates are currently high. And so it is our hope that by the time we get to permanent financing, that the final debt will be at a lower interest rate and thus lower the overall cost. So those are the three major reasons why the city's not yet ready to go to permanent financing.
And we can't project, it's been asked, do we know when they'll get the financing and therefore when we'll be able to do a permanent bond? We don't know. We hope it will certainly be within the next 12 months because we don't really want to keep refinancing because there is a cost every time we do this. It's an issuance cost.
There's an issuance cost,
Yep.
yes.
So,
But I think, do you want me to talk about some of these key other
Yeah.
factors?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yep.
I think it's important to understand some of the fundamentals of the agreement between the city and city place partners. So one of those I've already talked about, which is that the amount of debt that the city will issue is limited by what the tax revenue, the incremental tax revenue from the project will ultimately support. And we've got a financial model that projects that. I'm responsible for kind of maintaining that model. And ultimately, if, again, in a worst case scenario, if something were to happen and the north building doesn't get finished, it doesn't get completed, we of course fully anticipate it will be, but you know, our job is to protect the city's interests. And a piece of that is to look at those what if scenarios. So in that worst case scenario, the south building alone will support about $6 million in debt. So a worst case scenario, I think, you know, plus or minus the final amount to be determined, but more like 6 million, not 18 million, is what that debt amount would be. Secondly, is that city place partners are legally obligated under the ARTA 2.0 to complete the infrastructure build out regardless of how much money is available to them from the city through the TIF. And if it's only $6 million, there's not going to be enough money to fully reimburse city place partners for the construction. They'll get reimbursed only up to that amount that is available through that and the various grant sources that are applicable to it. And then it's also important to understand that under the agreement, the city gets paid its costs before the city place partners gets paid. So we have what's called a waterfall, and there are various steps in that waterfall. And the first step of the waterfall, called tier 1, is the city's costs. The second is city place partner reimbursement to their construction costs. So the city is really amply protected through that. And in the meantime, though, the costs of borrowing, interim costs, if we reach a point where the the interest earnings of the interim financing is insufficient to pay the debt costs, then the agreement also calls for city place partners to pay the cost of that net, whatever that net interest cost is, if any. And I think that's the gist of it. I will say all of this, the projections we have, the modeling that we've done, ignores the potential for additional development on the LL Bean site or well, our Macy's isn't actually in the TIF district. Right. It's abuts the TIF district, but it's not in the TIF district. But on the remaining portion of Paul and fronts on Church Street. So if development actually happens there, there will be considerably more revenue available within the TIF district. In fact, almost certainly a surplus beyond what's needed. And at that point, the amount that will be retained in the TIF district to help pay debt service will be less, I would anticipate, the full amount, and the remainder would then be distributed pro rata to the education fund and the municipal fund.
Doc, a deadline for the LLB building? I mean, we're not beyond.
We don't need a deadline here because we've incurred all the debt we can, so the only deadlines are really about. But no, we'll be recapturing,
Okay.
we'll be capturing that increment
Yeah,
up
got it.
until 2036.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, that's it.
Great.
Yeah.
Any other questions or discussion from the board? Are we ready for a motion? Yes.
Well, just before that, just thank you for that presentation. Please don't take from the absence of questions, disapproval in any respect. I'm thrilled by the progress of the project thus far, and thanks to Dave and our partners as well for continued work. It's been really exciting to see, and I continue to hear from so many folks around the community, particularly our downtown business community, how excited they are to get that first building open. So thank you. And I would move to approve and recommend that the city council waive the reading and adopt the proposed resolution to authorize refinancing $18,840,000 in a project note for Waterfront TIF District public improvements associated with Burlington Square, formerly City Place Burlington.
Thank you. Is there a second? Great. Councilor Barlow. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you both.
Do we have 5 minutes to ask Mr. White a question unrelated?
No, sorry.
No, I really just want
If
5
that
minutes
we'll pay later.
on the project-based tip. I know. we're-
Oh, yeah, that's the new
I'm
building.
deeply
Oh, yeah,
involved in
he's
that.
very
Yeah,
involved.
I know you
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
He's
Excellent.
sitting
So
right
don't
here.
go anywhere, David. Sarah's gonna catch you in
Okay.
between meetings.
Okay,
I'm sorry we
We've
don't
done
have
that
time
quickly.
for that now, but
Okay.
I'm feeling stressed and like I wanna get you out of
Okay.
here at 6:00.
Well, just as a point of information, we do have an update from the
Okay.
lobbyist,
That's right.
30 minutes in the full council meeting tonight.
okay.
So,
I'll get up. I just been so involved.
and my hope is that the city's lobbyist would be able to weigh in on where that stands.
Great. All right, City Engineer Wheeler, why don't you talk to us about the technical services reorganization that you are proposing?
Thank you. So we're here just to take a review of the staff that are within our division of DPW. We had a pretty significant turnover of our group occurring over the last year and a half. As part of that, we really evaluated which positions were helpful to our organization, helpful to the city in doing the job that we do. And ultimately came down to the planning role, which was underneath the senior planner as a role that it doesn't serve in our best interest at this point in time. The planner role really does, as you heard earlier, help facilitate plans coming together. We work very collaboratively amongst all of the other city departments. I want to reassure you that the workload that we do in our group is not being pushed to any other division or department. As the org chart shows in the proposal, this position will be supporting the senior planner in their work. Probably little notice to people, our senior planner is a professional engineer, so it's not that you need a planning degree to do this work. The engineers underneath the senior planner will support that role in planning efforts with the city and our transportation planning. It's a role that the public works engineer already was 50-50 managed with our planning group, as well as performing engineering services. So why do we need an associate public works engineer? We already have 2 of these within our division. They are highly productive positions for the city. They support lots of billable work, so our team bills our work out to different grant funded projects, enterprise funds. They really are kind of the meat and potatoes. They get our work done for us. And in my time that I have been with the city, we have been fulfilling this technical need with engineering interns that we hire usually from a local university, can hopefully get them to work through the school year, but there's a lot of work that goes into training somebody to do basically the same job year after year after year, and in a time frame where we are looking to utilize staff, consolidate be a little bit more efficient and effective. This feels like the right move to take a position that was unbillable, moving it to being billable, and moving it so that we're not using other staff hours, retraining someone to do the same task. That is something that I can't figure out in my 10 years how to not complete. So that is why we are moving that way. So I do want to emphasize, this is not passing any work to other departments. We will still complete the work that we have with the staff that are listed.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Yes.
No, thank you. I'm just curious, we haven't really seen any of the impacts or changes that modern gov might bring to BPW. I'm assuming that whatever changes those might be, this particular reorganization step would fit with any new organizational structure.
Yes,
Good
I can assure you that we have factored this into that.
Yeah.
Yes, Councilor Beasley.
How long is the position that runs?
It's October of 23.
Any other questions? Or are we ready for a motion? Yes, Councilor Barlow.
Gotta make the motion as recommended.
You can. Is there a second? Yes. Excuse me. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the action passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. And it's been a minute and we have missed you, airport staff. Please give us a quick overview of item 4.3, which is executing a contract with Jacobs Engineering Group for taxi CG rehabilitation, project design and construction oversight.
I'm gonna have to teach you the phonetic alphabet.
Yes, I don't know. I'm gonna need it.
So every year, this time of year, we bring both to the Airport Commission, Board of Finance, City Council, all of our grant applications that we're moving forward with, because the Federal Aviation Administration has deadlines of around May, beginning of May for those grant applications. So these next two items are associated with our grants this year. This first item, which is Taxiway Charlie and Golf, CNG, is one of our primary taxiways to get pretty much from the terminal over to the end of one of our runways. This particular grant, this isn't a request today for the actual grant application. This is the work associated with finalizing the design as well as the construction oversight of that particular work, which is a mill and overlay of that particular taxiway. This is for Jacobs Engineering Group, as I mentioned, for a couple $100,000, just over $380,000, which is only coming to the Board of Finance under the procurement rules. In about a month, we'll be back before the board to bring the grant acceptance, which we won't receive until later in the summer.
Yeah, that's the construction contract.
Yeah, the construction. And that's all for this item. And I apologize, I'm here with Larry Lackey, our Director of Planning, Engineering and Sustainability, as well as Marie Friedman, online, our Director of Finance.
The pavement index, the condition index is at a point where it's needed and supported by the FAA to rehabilitate.
Excellent. Any questions or comments on this one? Ready for a motion? Yes, Councilor Barlow.
I would make the motion as recommended, motions, right? Just one, as recommended.
Is there a second? Councilor Carpenter, excellent. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. And let's move on to 4.4 and tell us what's going on with Project Next.
Yeah, so
What's next for next?
what's next for next? Well, this is next for next. So Project Next is our new north expanded terminal and EXT. And that is under construction right now. That is fully funded with a $34 million grant, as well as some entitlement grant funds that are going into the construction costs today. That is very much under construction today. This is the next phase of Project Next, which consists of replacing the jet bridges, which are going to go at that building, that new building, and start the renovation of the rest of the existing second floor of the terminal. So that way there's a very consistent message and consistent walking path from our new terminal just above the TSA security all the way to Project Next. This is using bill funding by bipartisan infrastructure law funding, as well as airport improvement program funds, grant funds. This also will help us kind of continue that project through the rest of the terminal, like I mentioned. This one is for 2 motions, not just to sign an amendment with Engelberth for $6.4 million, but also accept the grant that is associated with it as well. We couldn't apply for this grant last year because it was allocated for this federal fiscal year. We'll be back again in next federal fiscal year with another portion of Project Next. The last portion of Project Next.
Excellent, exciting updates. Any questions or comments, discussion, board? Yes, Councilor.
Thank you for this. I'm supportive, and I'm excited about Project Next, but I just had a question about, currently we have that sort of, all the jetways are off of that sort of annex that sticks out of
That's right.
the, sticks out of the current. So will that continue to be in operation as you're building out Project Next, or is there, and just in terms of sequencing, will that?
Sequencing. In portions of it, yes. So there are 4 jet bridges at the end of that northern annex right now. 2 of those jet bridges essentially are going to be re-operational in Project Next. We're trying to get to 2. It's all about the physical space to get the aircraft fitted properly over there. The rest of the 2 will be reallocated in the South Concourse or other concourse airline gate positions while that annex is being demolished. Once it's demolished, then they come right back up to the new exterior side of the building. So eventually they will all be relocated directly, pretty much where the annex is, but much further away from our taxiways and runways, which is part of the major problem that we have that started this project in the first place.
You'll be able to accommodate larger aircraft.
Every single gate will be able to accommodate larger aircraft. 2 of the gates on that annex right now, sometimes 3, depending on what's out there, cannot accommodate those. We have to restrict the size of aircraft today. This will allow it.
This will allow both small jets and the large jets.
We were doing full flexibility.
Excited.
Yes.
I'll go ahead and make the motions as recommended.
Is there a second to the motion? Any further discussion or any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And thank you. Item 4.5. We don't often get to hear from Mary Denko, our Fletcher Free Library Department Head. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this restoration and preservation project?
Yes, I feel like the last 7 times you've seen me, it's been about this project. Because it's been a long project in the making and it has many different funding sources. So I came to you, gosh, I think it was over 2 years ago because we had to get approval before we could even go for the NEH grant, which we got, which was a 3-to-1 match. And then we got the National Park Service grant, which is a 1-to-1 match, and that was through the generosity of Senator Leahy as part of a CBS request. And then we have a small piece also from the Vermont Historic Preservation grant and a match for that from the city. So it's a total project of about $2 million, 21,000. And throughout the project, I've come to you because architects Doran Whittier have had to do some pre-work to get to the point where finally we're ready to hit with construction. So a RFQ was put out. I'm getting, now we have RFQ, RFPs, all these different things that Kim Blakely, Facilities at Parks, who's been a wonderful partner on this project for us for a long time, worked on. There were 2 bids, and we have chosen the bid of Nagley and Chase. And now we have a construction contract that we'd like to bring to you and hopefully get the project started in weeks, maybe a month or so. And it is, people probably don't have the opportunity to see the back of the building where most of the worst, that's probably not a very good grammatically sound sentence, but the worst degradation that we're seeing on the 1904 Carnegie building is definitely back there. We're seeing them. I can practically put my whole hand up to my wrist into some of the spaces between foundation stones and even in some of the brickwork. We have windows that are really in bad shape. So this project will take care of the whole entire exterior envelope of the building. And I will point out that this work was done as part of the larger remodeling project that we were looking at. And when we looked at the 1904 building, as all the different, contractors that came through, as you have to tighten up that building for climate before you do anything. And so the window work that will be done on the building will definitely make it a much tighter, weatherized building. It is 1904. It still has the original roof, slate roof, so things can be made to last. And I think it is one of the most, I'm biased, but I think it is one of the most beautiful buildings in our city. And so preserving it through this project has been a lifelong, I feel like it's been lifelong, but since I've been here, it's just work that we knew that we had to get done. So excited to get to the point to bring you the contract portion.
Very exciting. Thank you, Mary. Questions or discussion from the board?
How does this weave into the bigger capital campaign work you talked about?
So when we did the building assessment, this was going to be part of that whole project. But we kept asking, can we phase it? Can we phase it? Can we phase it? And they're like, there's so much that's integrated with HVAC and fire suppression, but they did say this is one piece that you can break off. So, and it's been helpful because the grants that we've gotten are specific for historic preservation. I think the other one's cultural preservation. So they were kind enough to say, yes, you can do this. This makes sense. Break it off, get that work done, and then all that interior work that you need to get done can all come next.
Any other questions or discussion? Ready for a motion?
It's very exciting, Mary. So thank you for coming.
I think, yeah, you're gonna see activity around the building. I think it will be exciting.
All right, who's up for a motion?
I would move to approve the motion as set out on the civic clerk.
Great. And a second by Councilor Newbeezer. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
And last but certainly not least, we have Waterfront overnight security contract, and we have Director White and
Have the brains online.
yes,
Alec
we have
and Aaron.
Alec and Aaron.
I'm the lovely assistant.
Perfect. Oh, looks like Aaron's joining us from somewhere lovely outside.
Henry's got a ball game today.
Perfect.
First game of the season, I think.
All right, who would like to give us a quick overview?
I'll start. This will be the 3rd year that we've hired out overnight security with this. But this time around, we figured we would go for a longer contract and hopefully draw in some more security companies for bids and such. So we figured a 3-year contract, and we did. We got 3 bids this year, and Securitas came out on top. They were the lowest bid. They seemed the most professional, and we are pretty happy all around with having them in at the waterfront and the campground this year.
Excellent. Anything to add, Aaron or Cindy, before we open it up for questions? Wonderful. Board, any questions, comments? Yes.
Is the 273 for the 3 years or 1 year?
3 for both locations. So, and it's already from our budget. We already have it budgeted. So we took it away from our seasonal line like 3 years ago when we started doing this, and we just it's a lot easier than trying to find seasonals that can work overnight.
And I will add, it does seem like we're going to get a better product out of this. They have some really neat data that they can provide for us. So there's GPS tracking of where the security goes at night. We can get the maps. There's online portal for us to access for forms or incident reports. So it's an elevation of our service, which I'm excited about.
Yes.
I just, out of curiosity, where do they get their staff? Is it just local seasonal people? Is that?
No, they have year-round staff. Securitas actually does the courthouse.
Okay.
And they do all over the state with security. A lot of their staff they pull from veterans just getting out of the military or people that are waiting to go into the police departments. Some departments have a long line waiting for what do you call not boot camp, but for the police department, but what do you call it? Sorry, I'm on vacation this week, so my brain kind of left my body.
Thanks for being here, Alan.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Councilor Barlow, do you have a question?
Yes, I had 2 questions. One was, how long, we've been doing this for 3 years. Prior to 3 years ago, did we have security at the?
Yeah, we had security at both places, but we would hire them, and then it just was getting so hard to find people willing to do it. And so they often either didn't have somebody or it was some pretty questionable ones. And these guys made the case for why did, use a security company, and as either Alec or Aaron noted, they reduced from their seasonal line to help make that happen.
So does the security company try to interdict some of the sort of behavior that might happen at like North Beach and the parking lots and the campground? Or I'm not even sure. I mean, like if there are issues at the beach.
There are, yeah, there's college kids that like to come down and party at night, so they'll kind of head them off. They patrol the beaches, have them put out fires as well as in the campground in case. For example, using the campground, like they patrol the campground. And sometimes we have campers that come in late and they can point them to the right direction of their campsites and whatnot. And at the boathouse, again, the 2:00 crowd, when the bars get out, they like to go hang out on a boat for some reason, and security's there to help keep them out of people's boats. And if something happens, sometimes stuff happens with boats, they start sinking, and they're there to let us know that that's happening. We can mobilize and get that taken care of before it becomes too big of a problem with everything in the lake and
Do they monitor the skate park too and that
No.
part? Or is it mostly just the
Just
the
the-
marine experience?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
As someone who once, I think it was like 3 years ago, camped there, it was nice to be able to call that security number that I found online. Thank you for having that available when the people that were 11 o'clock at night still playing their music and called security, you said, hey, this is going on, and then they went and got them to quiet hours, time to turn your music on.
Any other questions? Someone like to offer a motion?
I will make the motion and recommend that.
And is there a second? Any any further comments? All those in favor, please?
Sorry.
Oh, yes.
I just want to take it, this is unrelated to the motion, but I just want to take an opportunity, Cindy, I don't know if between now and later this summer, you'll have another opportunity to come before the board, but.
Don't make me cry, Ben.
Okay. It's not prepared, so it won't be eloquent, but I just want to take an opportunity to thank you for your years of service to the city, and I think you're leaving quite the legacy here. So it's been a real pleasure working with you. And if we see you again, I'll say it again. Just in case we don't see you in a formal capacity.
There you go.
Wanted to make sure we sent that here.
Yeah, thank you very much. So lucky. It's, been a really amazing job, to serve the city, and how lucky am I? Look at this, I have 2 park commissioners sitting here. I always feel like that's a total bonus when your park commissioners become city councilors.
Well, now you can run your city.
Oh, there we go.
If you don't move the
If I don't move me.
Yes.
I did that on retirement.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's take a vote. All those in favor of item 4.6, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Thanks to all of
Great,
you,
thanks, Erin.
especially
Thanks,
Alec and
Thank
Aaron
you.
coming from vacation and kid stuff. And with apologies to Councilor Carpenter, because we had your 5 minutes. with a point.
Okay.
You never know.
Okay.
Yes. Without further objection, we will adjourn the Board of Finance at 5:49. Thank you.